How's it going, everybody? I'm Steve Ninja, and welcome back. So tonight I'm going to give a list of 10 guitar players I really like. These aren't ranked at all. They're numbered, and it has a picture up with them. But it's really hard to kind of rank these. There's so many great guitar players, and it's hard to say one guitar player is better than another. But I do want to have a number next to them so you can keep track of who they are, and you can kind of fast forward through if you want to. There's like 3 guitar players that I've heard a lot of people say are really great. And I'm sure they are, but I just never heard anything from them. One would be Uli John Roth, from formerly of Scorpions back in the 70s. Frank Marino from Mahogany Rush. I've never heard anything from him or from that band. And also Robin Trower. So maybe someday I'll check these bands out. Let me know in the comments what some of your favorite guitar players are, and if any of these three are ones that you really recommend. I'm sure you do. I've heard so many guitar players say that they really like these three players. So I'm sure they're really great. It's just I've just never really heard anything from them. I need to really kind of research the '70s era of Scorpions, kind of learn more about that. But maybe someday I will. But and before I give my the number one pick here, I'll give some honorable mentions. My list is really going to be a lot of hard rock and metal guitar players. So it's I'm sure there's so many guitar players over the last 60 years or more that people will recommend in the rock genre anyway. Rock, metal, hard rock. So at number 10 I have David Gilmour from Pink Floyd. What a great guitar player! He plays with so much feel, and he's not really a fast guitar player necessarily, but when he gives his solos, he has really memorable solos, and I really like Pink Floyd, so he's a huge part of that band. At number 9, I have Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath. Come on, it's heavy metal. What would heavy metal be without Tony Iommi? I had to include him on this list. It's just he's been around for decades, and the guy just has these really nasty riffs. He's a left-handed guitar player. He had the accident on his fingers where he had to wear those. He had to wear those pieces at the end of his index finger and middle finger, and it just gives that sound. And he has to kind of down tune to make it sound different, and so it made it really unique and really dark. The way he plays. So just that little accident that he had is a huge part of heavy metal. At number 8, I have Brian May from Queen. He's been playing since the early '70s. That he definitely gives you just enough. Plays for the song. When you hear the song "We Will Rock You," that little guitar part when he comes in on the guitar solo, he doesn't play the whole song, but when he comes in on that solo, it's really memorable. Bohemian Rhapsody, he's got that sound that song has so many different styles in it, and when his guitar solo comes in, it's really memorable. And also on Brighton Rock, when you hear that sound, it definitely sounds like something that would have influenced like thrash or something. It's got that sound to it. If you know that song, it definitely sounds like something that was to come. I think it was 1974, I believe, from Sheer Heart Attack. Love his solo on that one. At number 7, I have Joe Satriani. He's so good that I'll actually buy instrumental albums. I don't really have a lot of instrumental albums in my collection, but I think he's so good that you don't even need vocals for a lot of his songs. I think he had like one album where he tried to sing on it and it didn't really work very well. But Surfing with the Alien was the first album I had from Joe, and then later on my cousin gave me Not of This Earth, and then after that I just bought Joe Satriani's albums every year. And he cranks out an album every 2 or 3 years, and I have to buy it. A lot of times it may not be a whole album of great songs, but there's like 2 or 3 tracks on it. There's like you've got to listen to, and his solos are great. Some people don't like his guitar tone, but I really love his sound. At number 6, I have Richie Blackmore from Deep Purple and Rainbow. Come on, man, that guy is definitely an influence on a lot of metal bands. Richie was really on fire back in the '70s, and then in the '80s he did more commercial rock music at that time, and then sometime in the early '90s, I think when he left Deep Purple, that's when Joe Satriani took over. Took over for like 6 months in that band, and after that, Richie kind of dropped off from playing like hard rock and metal. I think he basically thought in the '90s that hard rock and metal was done. So he decided to do something that was completely different. It wasn't commercial at all with his wife. I forget what kind of style he plays, but it's not heavy. I think he's kind of back now, sort of. But I think Richie was at his peak back in the 70s, that's for sure. At number 5, I have Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin. Come on, this guy's a monster, especially in the late 60s and throughout the 70s. Definitely on top of his game at that time. And I think he produced all of Led Zeppelin's albums. This guy, he's a great lead guitarist, rhythm guitarist, acoustic guitar player. He can do it all, anything guitar related. This guy's a master. At number 4, I have Michael Schenker. This guy was a phenom at like 16. He played on Scorpions' debut album, 72, and then he left to join UFO. That 70s era UFO was huge. And I think it was like the third album or maybe fourth album. And, from like 73 to 78, he was just set the world on fire during that time, and then he left. Like I said, Stranger Than Night is one of my favorite live albums, and Michael Schenker was a huge part of that. And then he rejoined Scorpions in '79 for Love Drive, and just for I think he played like maybe 3 or 4 songs on that. Then he quit the band and went solo at that point. And obviously his brother Rudolph is in Scorpions, and he never seems to get along with his brother. I think it's just a competitive thing, I think, with them. And Rudolph's really more of a rhythm guitar player, and Michael Schenker is really more of a lead player. So he's always kind of, even though his brother's older, he's always kind of thought his brother is not that great of a guitar player, in his opinion, even though Rudolph is pretty good in Scorpions. But, obviously after that, he went and had a solo band during that time. Michael Schenker, man, that guy is a monster, though. At number 3, I have Yngwie Malmsteen. I actually started listening to Inve just a few years ago. I knew some of his music from the 80s. I'd heard stuff like that, and then I discovered. I asked one of my friends, a few years ago, if he can kind of give me a sampling of some of Yngwie's music, and he gave me some stuff on Alcatraz, and I think Inve was really young when he started. I don't know if he was like 17 or 18, but he has this real kind of operatic kind of sound. He's got he has the scallops in his guitar. It gives him a different kind of sound, and he definitely sounds more like classical music the way he plays. And I just developed a appreciation for his playing that I just never knew anything about it. I think it's because he's not really extremely commercial. But if you listen to like the 80s and 90s, like early 90s, that's really when he was at his peak as far as producing good music. But the guy's always been a great guitar player, though. At number 2, I have Jimi Hendrix. Come on, this guy. I still buy his albums now. They keep re-releasing stuff and better sound quality. Eddie Kramer does a lot of the mixing on them, that kind of stuff. But most recently, I bought the LA Forum show, which I had wanted for a long time. I was kind of a little bit disappointed in that. Just the songs are so long on it, but it's definitely worth owning. I think Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top, talked about how his band opened up for them. I forget what the name of that band was, but it was before ZZ Top. And Hendrix, told Billy Gibbons how great Billy's playing was, and he still carries that over. That's Jimmy's been dead since 1970, and Billy Gibbons still talks about how he was complimented by Hendrix, and I definitely think that has a big part of Billy Gibbons. His how he progressed as a guitar player and his confidence as a guitar player. It's because of Jimmy in a lot of ways, even though he was already an outstanding guitar player before that. But Jimmy's just such an innovator. Somebody that kind of that coming attraction. Whenever he played live, especially in England, it was a thing where the guys, the Beatles and the Who, they all had to come and watch Hendrix play. So he's a huge influence at that time, and he died way too young. So before I give you my number 1, I have to mention like 4 honorable mentions here, even though my list I can go on for days as far as great guitar players, but just 4 guitar players that I really like that I have to kind of mention here before I leave. But one is Angus Young from AC/DC, just a solid guitar player since the 70s. What would that band be without him? He's got these great riffs, really memorable. He's definitely got a lot of energy on stage, memorable with his, the suit that he wears, the schoolboy outfit that I think he still kind of wears it. I don't know, I can't remember the last time AC/DC played live. They didn't tour for Power Up, but just have to be really appreciative of how he's kept that band going over these years. Next up, I have to mention Alex Lifeson from Rush. He's been doing it since 1974, on their debut album. Working Man, that whole guitar riff. I really love his playing in the 70s, especially in the early 80s. And then, sometime in the 80s, he kind of got lost in the mix a little bit and then kind of returned back in the early 90s. Next, I have to mention Steve Vai. He played in David Lee Roth's band. He was in Frank Zappa's band. He was in Whitesnake. He's done a lot of solo work over the years. I think as far as his music, I'm not really a huge fan of all of his music. But as far as his solos are definitely memorable, one of the greats. So this last one, a lot of people might think it's kind of strange that I would mention him in my honorables, but it's James Hetfield from Metallica. He's really just a rhythm guitar player. He's the singer of the band. He doesn't play lead, but his riffs are so memorable. A lot of their songs start off with his riffs. Really memorable for a rhythm guitar player. And I really like his acoustic guitar playing is really great too. Like the beginning of Fade to Black. He's really the main guy in Metallica and writes most of the music. Without him, there would be no band. So at number one, I have Eddie Van Halen. I think Hendrix definitely set the bar one level in the 60s. And then less than a decade later, Eddie definitely exceeded that level. And I think, he kind of created his own sound. He took like a Fender and a Les Paul and kind of combined them together for his Frankenstrat, that kind of thing. He's such an influential guitar player, and especially on like hard rock and metal, especially in the 80s. From the late 70s through the early 80s, Eddie was definitely on fire during that time. His first 6 Van Halen albums were so huge, so influential. Somebody like Dimebag Darrell from Pantera talks about how influential Eddie was on his playing. So many bands were just influenced to play guitar because of Eddie. And I think a lot of guitar players eventually kind of exceeded Eddie's playing eventually and got heavier than Eddie. And like in the Van Hagar era, that Eddie's playing kind of took a back seat. He started playing more synthesizer during that time. But a lot of people that kind of know that music, if they don't know the early Van Halen stuff, they won't quite understand how great Eddie was at the time and how fast he was as a player. Really influential. So I had to make him number one. But like I said, these aren't really ranked, but I just had to kind of name him last on my list at number one just because of how great he was and how much we miss him now. Before I go, I have to mention that this channel is growing so much. I never thought it would do this. I'm doing these ranking videos. I'm going to do another like band ranking probably next. But I've been researching Judas Priest, so I might do that one next possibly. But I may also do my favorite bass players and drummers possibly. But it's been so much fun, and this channel's been growing so much faster than my movie channel. So I don't know. Eventually, I'm having a lot more fun with this channel. I get a lot more comments. People interact with me a lot more. So I don't know exactly why the movie channel's been going on for almost 2 years now, and that's almost at 300 subs. But this one I've been doing for like a year, and it's almost at like 260 something. Subscribers right now. So I don't know. Eventually, I may have to just kind of put the movie channel sort of in the back burner and do that one every now and then, and do a lot more on my music channel just because I'm having so much fun doing it. But please put a like on the video. Please consider subscribing and have a good night. Thank you. Bye.